This is a story time of my 6-year-long relationship. You guys ask about all the fucking time and strap in because it's a long one. I mean, like literally a long one. 6 years, babe. That's a long time. I'm sure some people are confused because of all my story times. You guys are like, how have you managed to have a 6-year-long relationship with all these stories? I literally was a player in high school, like complete hot girl turned housewife. All of my stories are obviously from before then or while like we were on breaks and stuff, like duh. Anyways, because it's dramatic, I don't even know how I'm gonna talk about this. I was 13, I saw a picture of this guy and he had eye black on because he was a baseball player, and I was like, that is the hottest guy I've ever seen in my life. At the time, I was in my like preteen awkward phase, and I literally thought I was so undesirable, so I never like ever thought that that would ever be a thing. He had a girlfriend who happened to be on my cheerleading team, actually. We're just like kids, so I was like, yeah, he's hot, but like I was like anti-boy at the time. Like I was like, he's hot, but I have no interest. Anyways, fast forward, I become friends with this girl named Emily. She's literally like, we were Emily squared. Him and her were actually kind of like talking. They were definitely doing the nasty, but like, I'm kind of shady for this. Whenever they would FaceTime around me, he would always talk about how it was so funny, but I was still so awkward, so I never thought like anything of it. Honestly, I think he was still talking to that girl that was on my cheerleading team, so I was like, he's kind of a player. Fast forward a few months, and he ends up messaging me on Twitter, of all places, because I was posting some depressing ass shit. He's like, if you ever need someone to talk, like, I'm here. And I was like, that is him trying to get at me. I was intrigued because he seemed very mysterious, and I'm just like an idiot. I don't know. I have to play hard to get, so I didn't message him. And then he ends up messaging me again when I was posting about like wanting to take pictures, and he's like, I'm a photographer, like if you ever want to like get pictures taken, like I can do them for you. I ignored him because I'm like, no, I'm gonna play hard to get, like he's gotta chase me, babe, duh. And Halloween came around and I got to dress up as a little sexy cop, and I was like all sexified going to this Halloween party, and he's there as a SWAT person, right? So like we're like on the same level at this point. I go up to him drunk as heck and I'm like, are you so-and-so? Literally, duh, Emily, you know who he is, you've talked to him before. And he's like, yeah, like you look so hot. And literally we are both thoughts at this point, living our best whole life. Like we were not ever gonna take shit seriously at this point. I'm just kind of flirting with him throughout the night, but at the time I was talking to one of the baseball players on his team, who he happened to have driven there at that time. My shitty ex-best friend that I actually just cut off last year was there and ends up leaving me alone at this party. I have no ride, and mind you, this guy is like 2 years older than me and he can drive. So also that makes him 10 times hotter in my brain. And he's like, I can bring you home, like it's on the way. Hard to get is over. I'm like, you know what? I'm drunk, you're hot, you have a car, like take me home. He takes me home and he tries to give me a smooch before I get out the car, but I remember I saw him talking to his ex-girlfriend at the party. So I was like, no sir, getting out the car, bye, nice, thank you. After that, he was hooked. It was just like, he was hooked, couldn't leave me alone. After that, like he'd pick me up, we'd go on these crazy adventures, and it literally was like a love story out of a freaking movie, like a coming of age high school love story, until he started dating his ex-girlfriend again and blocked me out of nowhere. Go to part 2. Part 2 of the story time of my 6-year-long relationship. Let's get into it. So he blocks me on everything. On everything. I'm heartbroken. I'm telling my best friend Tegan in the shower crying, like I can't stop thinking about it. Something about him was just so different. Like I'm so in love with him. My best friend Tegan is like passing me the blunt, like bitch, get the fuck over it. You guys didn't even do anything. Like you guys didn't even ever kiss. Like why are you in love with him? And I was like, it's just something different. Like he wanted to get to know me. He didn't want me for my body. Like he took me on all these adventures. It was just very different to me. Like this man had talked to a few of my friends, but I really didn't give a fuck because I know that I'm hilarious and I pack a lot of personality, baby, in a very small town. So it's just kind of bound to happen. Also, like it really wasn't like that. So it turns out like a couple months go by, this girl he was dating, I don't like to call girls nuts, but she was nuts. We were young, so she was nuts. I'm nuts still. Like, what the fuck? We end up breaking up, and it ends up being like this really bad breakup. So I'm just kind of like staying away from him because I'm just like, this girl is literally stalking you and she's stalking me. Like, I don't want any part in it. Go too into detail because that is his story and her story, and it's not mine to tell, you know? His best friend ends up messaging me and is like, he can't stop thinking about you. Like, he talks about you all the time. Will you please just go visit him at work? Like, whatever. Like, I know you still like him. I was like, fine. Like, duh. Like, of course. Like, obviously he asked you to do this, so of course I will do that. And I don't know how to explain it. I would have never done this for anyone else. Literally, you guys know my story times. Like, I don't like men. I don't fall in love, bitch. Like, what? Dude, at this point, it's been like 2 years of us being on and off talking. Never really fully getting there. We hadn't even kissed yet. End up meeting up, and he like tells me the whole rundown of what's happened since we hadn't been talking, and like what happened and why he ended up stopping dating that girl, and like just his whole life. At the time we hadn't been talking, I had dated someone that actually cheated on me and like went back to my ex, and like I had a bunch of stories too to tell, you know? Again, like out of a fucking movie. It literally felt like something out of a movie. When I look back at it, it was like something out of a teenage movie. We start going on adventures, traveling the whole country together, basically, like just falling in love. And it happens fast. And at this time, I end up homeless. Living out of my cousin's house. I end up like, my mom is going crazy and he's watching it all go down. And he was so supportive, so I was just falling in love with him more. Honestly, probably trauma bonded a little bit. He asked me to be his girlfriend officially on the night that his sister came home from Saudi Arabia, because his sister like lives out of the country. Brought me flowers and was like, will you be my girlfriend? Like, my family's never really met another girl that they liked, so, and they like you, so like, be my girlfriend. Within like, I want to say like 8 months, we were living together. Like, officially living together. We both had our own separate apartments at this point, but we were just living with each other. Like, we would be going from one apartment to the next apartment. We moved out of the city together and lived in a different city, and we really had a hard time there, so we ended up breaking up for a little bit. His job was like 100 hours a week. We never got to spend time together, and he decided to quit his job for me. Moved back out to our home city, and then he got another job that was really good. Broke up again for a little bit, got back together. Every time we broke up, it was only like a couple weeks, because it was just kind of like, we were so young growing up together. Literally, we got together when I was 16. We both got therapy, and we've managed to make it work. So yeah, long-term relationships are hard. You just really have to try. I was homeless at 17 and I still went to college, and you guys always want to know how I went to college if I was homeless, and I'm going to tell you how I managed to go to college. Long story short, my mom lost the house that we were living in when I was 17, and she had a psychotic break at the same time, so she couldn't afford to get a new place. Basically, we were both homeless at the same time, and my aunt let me stay with her for a little while until I got kicked out of there, and my mom stayed with her boyfriend until we found out he was a pedophile. That is a whole other story for a whole other time, but yeah, that happened. It meant that while I was in high school, I was homeless, and I was trying to figure out what my life was going to look like. I actually graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA, and I was accepted into every single college I wanted to go to, and my main college I wanted to go to, I had a full ride. I finally got my own apartment, and I decided it was time to start a community college minimally. I found out that my social security number was all screwed up, and they thought my birthday was a different day than it actually was. For 2 years straight, I was denied financial aid because they didn't even think I was a citizen. For me, this meant that I had to hustle literally 10 times harder than a lot of people, because I had to have 2 jobs, 5 side hustles. I was always finding new ways to make money. I finally figured out all the stuff with my social security stuff, which took forever, mind you, because it's hard jumping through hoops. The community college that I was applying to offered me a scholarship for youth homelessness, so that was helpful. In New York, they have this thing called a dependency override form, which you can fill out if you're completely independent, right? Not only was I completely independent, but my mom hadn't filled out taxes in years, so I couldn't use her tax information. And my father's not really in the picture, so that ended up doing was covering my entire tuition and then giving me some money to be able to pay rent. Semester, I got $8,000 back from the school itself. Started school thinking I was going to be a nurse. Big mistake. I was never going to be a nurse. I was the first person in my entire family to go to college, so I was so excited to even just be taking classes. Finished off my first semester with a 4.0 average. Like, do you understand? That is crazy. And COVID hit for my second semester. I failed every single class except for one. Decided to change my major to teaching, and then I failed again. After that, I dropped out temporarily because I wanted to figure out what do I actually want to do with my life before I ruin my GPA. And now we're here, and I'm still figuring things out. And I love you guys. That's it. Bye. Fun fact about me, actually really sad fact. When I was in high school, I used to separate my eyelashes with thumbtacks. Do you know what type of psycho you have to be to separate your eyelashes with a thumbtack? And these weren't new, like out of the box thumbtacks either. These were in my thumbtack board since I was like 11, okay? That means that these thumbtacks were literally sitting on 8 years, okay? Rusty and gross. Well, one day I made the little mishap of poking it into my eye, my cornea. I got an eye infection. I was so fucking red for literally 3 weeks, and I had to pretend like I wasn't the idiot that shoved a thumbtack in my own eyeball. And by the way, I got all my friends on this. In high school, I had all my friends separating their eyelashes with thumbtacks. That's not normal.
I'm an asshole for gifting a second-handed hoodie to my dad. So yesterday, for my dad's birthday, everything was fine, and I went to his house and we celebrated and gave him his presents. I'm a high school student, so I don't have much money for expensive gifts, but I got him a nice thrifted hoodie. I'm a fan of thrifting because you can get nice clothes for cheap, and you also don't hurt the environment. I told my dad that I thrifted the hoodie and he freaked out. He said it was disgusting to wear what other people have worn, and that I could have just got him something cheap but new or nothing at all. I even washed the hoodie before I gave it to him, even though clothes are already washed and disinfected at the store. He said that it was still dirty and that I'm an a-hole because the hoodie could have been harmful to his health. I find it ridiculous, but some of my relatives agreed that I should not have gifted him used clothes, as it's unsanitary. I'm the asshole for liquidating my daughter's college fund to keep our new dream house. I lost my husband 4 years ago, and I also have a 16-year-old daughter. My late husband left me everything and just told me to trust his lawyer. My husband worked 20 years as a doctor and some minor investments, so I inherited over 7 figures. A year later, I decided to list our home of 12 years, and I received an offer too good to refuse. With the inheritance and an influx of cash from selling the house, I decided to move my daughter and I to Malibu, because this is where we dreamed of living. We found a beautiful home by the sea, and I personally never handled anything regarding homes. I didn't really anticipate all the extra costs. My daughter was so excited. I just went for it. Husband's lawyer was furious at my decision, so I decided to stop taking his calls. I ended up signing up with a money manager, said that we'd be passively earning 90% of what my surgeons earn a year. But he ended up taking a lot of our investments. I took out the money, made my own, which made it worse. Now I only have about $35,000 available to me now, not to mention our debt. However, there's lots of money in the fund for our daughter's education. I used the money to prevent our cards from being shut down. I wouldn't have to worry about the mortgage. I told this and she was furious.